Welcome everyone to The Hidden Life of Ponds, discovering amazing critters hidden from view under the surface of a pond. I'm Anne-Marie, Communications Coordinator for the Pathway Project. And the Pathway Project is a partnership of many organizations centered in Peterborough, Ontario, directed by Camp Kawartha and sponsored by the Ontario Trillium Foundation. And I'd like to welcome our Pathway Coordinator, Kathy, and she's going to share tonight's land acknowledgement.
Hello to all of you, and glad that you could join us this evening. As Anne-Marie mentioned, we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe, and the Peterborough region is known to the Anishinaabe as Nogojiwanong, which is the place at the end of the rapids. And we are grateful to the First People for their care for the land through the millennia, and also for their teachings, how to be good stewards of this land. And we try to honor these teachings in the work that we do in the Pathway Project. And we're all working together to learn how to be good mentors to the children in our care. So I'm going to pass things back to Anne-Marie to carry on the program.
Let me introduce you to Jacob. Jacob has taught in the field of outdoor education for almost 30 years and is a champion of environmental stewardship. He is currently the executive director of Camp Kawartha, a summer camp and outdoor education center. Jacob received recognition from the Canadian Network for Environmental Education and Communication as an outstanding educator and co-authors the Big Book of Nature Activities. And that is just a snippet of his resume. So welcome, Jacob. We are so happy to have you here.
So delighted to be here, and I hope in my presentation you'll get some hints about things you can discover in a pond or in a stream that might be hidden from view. This is a program that I hope is relevant to parents with kids, to educators who might be looking for ways to get their classes involved with pond studies. Hopefully there's some good hints here to help you get started on that.
Hello friends, it's Jacob Rodenburg here from Camp Kawartha. Welcome on such a beautiful evening. We've got birds singing like the white-throated sparrow who says, "Oh, sweet Canada, Canada, Canada." In the States, they think he says, "John Peabody, Peabody, Peabody." I heard a tree frog. Brrp, brrp. Go to a wetland and there'll be all kinds of sounds for you to hear. One of the things you can do is take your two hands, cup them together, slip them behind your ears and push forward and just listen to the riot of sounds. And you might hear a common yellowthroat, witchety, witchety, witchety. Anyway, today we are going to explore the hidden life of ponds. If you go to a pond, oftentimes you don't know what's there because, first of all, there's the sunlight glinting off the water. It's hard to see what's underneath. Most of the critters are hiding in the mud. But if you come armed with a simple net like this, and any white bucket, the white bucket could be a white yogurt container or a dishwashing bucket, you can get your net at the dollar store. Another thing you can do is very simple, is you take a tin can and then you just put some cellophane on the end and tape it really tight. What this becomes is like a pond viewer. And if the water's a bit clearer than this muddy water, you just stick it in, and it's a little bit like having a mask on. You can see critters underneath. I mean, right here, I just saw a little damselfly nymph, and we'll talk more about him later on. But what you do is you just take your net and your bucket, and off you go. Now, if you have rubber boots, great. Water shoes, great. I happen to have bare feet. I know this is a safe place to walk. There's no glass, but better to be safe than sorry. Put something on the bottom of your feet and then go to the edge. Now you don't actually have to go in the water. You could be on the edge and just scoop. See what you find. So I'm gonna scoop through the mud. When I scoop through the mud, I lift up from the bottom and I look for little things that are wriggling. What I try to do is make sure there's some clear water in my container. And if I find something wriggling, why, I'm going to take them out and put them in. Now that time I didn't catch anything. Look over there, you can see some whirligig beetles twirling around and whirling and whirling. Wonder if I can catch one if I... Look at that, I caught 2 of them. Now, whirligig beetles are known for just being able to swim so fast. In fact, they carry a bubble of air attached to their rear end so they can dive onto the water and breathe. They have 2 sets of eyes. They can see above the surface of the water and below the surface of the water all at the same time. And they scooch around looking for tiny bugs to eat. Sometimes one whirligig beetle will go very quickly, creating ripples, and another whirligig beetle will ride the ripple like a wakeboarder, and that makes it more energy efficient for them. So see if you can get some whirligig beetles. Here, let's check out some of the other things I caught. Hopefully I didn't catch a cold. Jessica was here earlier, and Jessica's helping me with the videotaping. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
And I found all kinds of things. If you just want to come over close and hold your video camera so you can see what's in here. Look at this, and that's just after 10 or 15 minutes of scooping. One cool thing you might like is this guy right here. Anybody know what he is? He is a jet-propelled underwater bug snatcher. What am I talking about? Well, this fella takes water in through his mouth, expels it out his rear end so he can shoot forward, and he grabs bugs. How does he do it? Well, he has this special folding jaw called a labium. I'm gonna open it for you right here. It's like a big front end loader, a scoop, and he can scoop bugs in. See that? What is he? What is he? Well, it turns out he's a baby dragonfly. He lives the first part of his life under the water in the ooze. And what he's doing is he's walking around catching what he can catch. Sometimes he shoots forward and then brings his jaw out and catches a little bug. Over time, he molts, means he squeezes out of his skeleton, exoskeleton, and he grows a little bit. Insects wear their bones on the outside of their body. And he's going to do this 5 or 6 times, and the last time he'll do it, he'll crawl up on a cattail or a long piece of grass. He'll break out of his exoskeleton, he'll pump fluid into his wings, and off he'll go. He'll become an adult dragonfly. Around here at this time of year, the types of dragonflies we see...
Jacob, can I point out, I'm so sorry, can I point out this leech?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to focus in on him for a minute because he's...
Look at the red dots on his back.
Exactly.
Look, watch the way he moves. His muscles are like accordions, so they come in sections, and he can move one section at a time. So in the olden days, people used to use leeches as part of a medical therapy. They believed that if you stuck leeches on a wound or you had a disease and you put leeches on your body, it would suck your blood, and then it would stimulate you to make new blood, and that would purge your body of any bad things. In the olden days too, the barber shops had those pillars, you know, with the intertwining red and the white. The red part stood for leeches, so you could go and get a leech treatment and a haircut all at the same time. The white stood for the haircut. But back to the dragonflies.
Okay.
One of the dragonflies you'll see coming out at this time of year is called the common whitetail. The males have that beautiful white tail, and the females have a darker abdomen. They flit around. Jessica, did you know they can fly at speeds of more than 50 kilometers an hour?
Really?
Their heads are one of the few insect heads that can move, and each eye is crammed full with 20,000 to 30,000 lenses, so they've got really good eyesight. On a hot summer's day, what you can do is take a soda cracker and then just put it in your hand until you get very fine crumbs. If you see a dragonfly, fling some of those crumbs in the air and the dragonflies will scoop down and grab one. And you can watch. Some dragonflies will grab the crumb with their mouth. Others will grab it in their feet like a basket. Here's the baby dragonfly again. You can see the wing casings right there.
Oh, look at that.
What are some other things we caught? Wow. This guy right here. I don't know if you've ever seen one before. He's a little bit wiggly, but he's got a great name. He's called a newt. And the newts are kind of salamander, and they spend the first part of their life under the water. They even have little gills. So it's a very tiny baby newt right where I'm pointing with external gills. He's gonna grow and grow and grow, and at some point, this newt will leave the water. He'll head out into the woods. He'll go under logs and eat bugs for a while. He's called a red eft at that point. That's the same thing. And then he'll come back as an adult and live the rest of his life and also lay eggs and fertilize them as an adult newt. So there you go. Start life in the water, leave the water, come back to the water. What a cool thing that is.
Beautiful.
Wetlands are so filled with neat creatures. There's this little guy here, and I'm sure you'll find some too. He's called a baby damselfly. Can you see its wing casings right there? On his tail, these two things are actually its gills, so it can breathe, waving its gills around, extracting oxygen from the water. We got a whirligig beetle again, a diving beetle. So many critters to see and explore. Jessica, what would you do if you saw one of these?
Oh my goodness. Well, I would wonder right away what it was.
Well, this is called a hellgrammite. It does kind of look hellish. They're about that big, and you find them in ponds and streams, especially streams, and fishermen love them because fish love them to eat. The hellgrammite will turn into be a Dobson fly, like that.
Oh, beautiful.
So many of the critters that we catch are just babies. And eventually they're safe under the water, catching bugs until they can grow, and then they become adults and they fly. Oh, we were talking a little bit about the damselfly, or the damselfly nymph. When I use the word nymph, it means baby. This guy is going to turn into this.
Ooh.
So beautiful. I call them flying jewels, and you'll see them flitting around the wetlands. Their bodies are sometimes iridescent blue or really brightly colored green. This one's called an ebony jewel wing. What a nice name. And if you go to Jackson's Creek, you'll see them around the wild mint and around the St. Joe's pieweed and other plants. But I love them, one of my favorite insects. So check those out. Jessica, when you catch a bug,
Yes.
don't be in a hurry just to say, oh yeah, it's a whirligig beetle, and then put it back. Take a look at it and ask yourself some questions. One of the questions you can ask is, I wonder how it moves. Another is, what do you think it eats? So check out its mouth parts. If you have a magnifying glass, put it up, take a look and see if you can figure out what it eats. It might have, like the dragonfly, thrusting jaw parts. It might have piercing jaw parts. It might have crunching mouth parts. So study the mouth parts. How does it move? What does it eat? Do you think it's a baby or an adult? In the case of the whirligig beetle, it's an adult. In the case of a dragonfly, it's a baby. And next you can ask, is it camouflaged? You think about the color that many of these critters are. They're that color because they blend in with the mud. So they're nicely camouflaged. Even the newt, nicely camouflaged. And lastly, you could ask, how does it breathe? The whirligig beetle takes air down in a bubble. Others, like a water scorpion, which is not harmful by the way, it breathes through a breathing tube. Others, they carry air down underneath their bellies. Others have gills. So how does your critter breathe? If you ask those questions, you can really study the bugs up close and get to know them better.
I'm going to release this guy so we can watch him swim.
There he goes.
Right, fast swimmers. You see him there?
Yeah, and look at the way that the damselfly moves. See that? Remember how that goes. Wiggling back and forth, back and forth. Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Well, maybe on that note, we can try some different bug dances. What do you think, Jessica?
It sounds great.
For that, I think we need some music. And I think I've got some queued up here. And okay, are you feeling it, Jessica?
Okay. Yes.
Little Mavis Staples. All right, so we got some different bugs, and when you get back on the shore, you can try some of the dances. Like you got the whirligig beetle, right? And what does a whirligig beetle do? Well, it shoots forward and it spins. It shoots forward and it spins. So you can do the whirligig, do the whirligig. Oh, what about the damselfly? Did you watch the way he moved like this? Damselfly move back and forth. The dragonfly walks on the bottom, takes water in through its mouth, and shoots it through its rear end and surges forward with his folding labium. What about the salamander? Salamander kind of crawls using all of its legs and will wiggle its tail too for propulsion. So see if you can get your tail going. All right, different bugs move differently. So sometimes see if you can have a bug boogie. Get to know your bugs. The mayfly nymph. We didn't catch one, but he lives in streams. You'll catch him in Jackson's Creek. They're tiny with 3 tails, and they move up and down like Aquaman. You could even try the worm. If it wasn't so muddy, I'd try the worm. But see if you can get your mayfly going. Unleash your inner mayfly. Yeah. All right, thank you, Mavis.
Thank you, Jacob.
Well, hello everyone, and here I am at Camp Kawartha's beautiful fen. Now, a fen is a type of a wetland that has water meandering through it. I'm just going to switch the camera here so you can see what it looks like. You can see there's willow growing on either side. And at one time, this fen had a bunch of beavers living there. You can see an old beaver's lodge here. But over time, the beavers left and moved elsewhere, and the water's drained away, and still really pretty. So there are fens, that's one type of wetland, but there's also bogs. Bogs are characterized by very still water, sort of stagnant water, and it has sphagnum moss growing on it, Labrador tea, Venus flytraps, sundew, all kinds of special plants that only grow in bogs. There's swamps as well, and swamps are places that have a lot of dead trees and standing water. And lastly, there are marshes. And marshes are characterized by cattails, Typha latifolia, Typha augustifolia, beautiful narrow-leaved and broad-leaved cattails that help to clear water, filtering it through their roots. Since we saw you last, we made our way from the pond all the way to this beautiful stream. It's draining from a wetland called the fen. And along the way it tumbles, and as water tumbles, it gains oxygen. So the kind of critters that you find in the stream can be a little bit different from the ones you find in the pond. Oftentimes they'll have gills to extract the oxygen from the water. If you go to a stream, the best thing to do is take some rubber boots, step into the stream carefully, and you'll notice that there's a current. Put your net down at the bottom, and then take your foot just in front of your net and move your foot back and forth just a little bit, and the current will carry what's ever under the rocks into your net. And then you simply check into your net. And I found a bunch of little crayfish. Whatever cool. I'm going to put those in here. Whoa, come on and check out some of the other things we found. Neil, I discovered, and I love this. You know what that is?
No, what is that?
It's watercress. Watercress growing in this fresh stream just tastes delicious. Now, don't just go putting things in your mouth unless you absolutely know what it is.
No.
But if you do know watercress, it's just delicious. Got a peppery flavor, fresh from the stream. Check this out. We found this guy earlier on. That's a crayfish, and I think it's a girl crayfish, and you can tell she has swimmerettes under here, and the males have 2 protrusions there. What they like to do is move along the bottom, taking their claws, putting it into their mouth, and they eat decaying matter, bugs. But they're great swimmers. Check out how they use their tail as a paddle. 1, 2, 3, here we go. course, he's not using his tail as a paddle because it doesn't always, there you go, see? He can scooch pretty quickly. Maybe if you go to a pond, you'll catch a frog. And if you catch a frog, look at its coloring. Frogs, they are an example of counter shading. So usually an object is darker on the bottom and lighter on top. Many animals do the opposite. They're lighter on the bottom and darker on the top so they can break their form. Frogs are a good example of that. If you check out their belly, they're often whitish or yellowish. Anyway, we have a whole bunch of different frogs here in Ontario, and each one of them has a remarkable voice. So Jessica, are you ready to help me out? Because we're gonna do a little bit of a frog orchestra here, getting to know the frog songs of Ontario. Oh, and what are they saying, those frogs? Well, roughly translated as best I can from frog to English. Hey, if you are a boy frog, back off, this is my territory. If you're a girl frog, come on over. As long as you're the same kind, we can get together. That's sort of how it goes. Now, different frogs have different sounds. This little fella, pound for pound, one of the loudest frogs in Ontario, even in North America, has a little vocal sac. What is it? It's a spring peeper. Spring peepers are only about that big. And in the spring of the year, here's what they say, Jessica. Beep, beep. Can you do that?
Beep, beep,
If you do it after me, it's a repeep. Repeat, beep.
beep, beep.
Good. So that's the peeper, and remember that because pretty soon I'm gonna ask you and you're gonna repeep it back. What about the frog that's green on the outside, green along the back, green on the head? If you could name it?
Green frog.
The green frog, that's right. Green frogs say, bloom, 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 bloom. Try that.
Boom, boom, boom.
There also is the frog with the spots. If you could give it a name, what would you give it?
Oh, a leopard frog?
Yes, exactly. What does a leopard frog say? We got to clear your throat for this one. Take a deep breath and go. It sounds like wet hands over a balloon.
A balloon, right.
Here is something that looks like a frog, but it's not a frog. What is it?
Oh, the American toad.
The toads congregate in wetlands in the spring of the year, and they let loose with a very passionate. You want to give that a try?
I don't think I can do that.
With your
Jacob.
lips?
Nope.
Okay, Jessica's got to work on that one.
I will.
And taking up the bottom strains of the orchestra, the deep-throated bullfrog, who sounds like jug-a-rum, 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 jug-a-rum. Now you can tell the male bullfrog, check out its tympanum or its ear. It's much bigger than its eye. So at a glance, you can say, oh yeah, that's a male. That's compared to a female whose tympanum or eardrum is the same size as its eye. Now, if you want to try sometimes, you take a frog, very gently hold it in your hand. Now, don't hold it too long because their skin is really sensitive. You just flip it upside down for a minute or two and let go. It'll fall asleep for you. I call it frognosis. You flip it back up again, fine, you can hop away. But frogs, well, you know what's cool about them? They're what's known as bioindicators. Say that, Jessica?
Bioindicators.
Bioindicators means that when you hear lots of frogs singing, chances are the water quality is healthy. Why? Because frogs breathe partially through their skin. And if there's lots of goo and pollution in the water, they're not going to breathe so well and their populations will decline. So scientists get an idea of water health by looking at the number of frogs in a pond and listening. So what I want you to do if you get a chance, go to frogwatch.ca and learn some of the different frog songs and go to a wetland. In the evening is the best time because that's when they really start to sing and listen and see if you can figure out those different sounds. And if you do, report that back to the scientists. You know, I heard 3 bullfrogs, 2 green frogs, a peeper. Jessica, I'm gonna see how well you did. I'm gonna hold one up and can see if you remember the sound, the leopard frog. Nicely done. What about the little fella, the peeper?
Beep, beep.
Nice.
Beep, beep.
What about the bullfrog?
Vroom.
Vroom, chug-a-vroom.
Vroom.
Yes. What about the green frog, the one that was green all the way around?
Putting you on the spot.
You are.
Yeah. Now, speaking about that, you know, you can also do the same with aquatic invertebrates. In other words, insects too can tell you how the water quality is doing. I'll make this available for you all. So for example, if you find lots of Dobson flies, caddisflies, stoneflies, dragonflies, it tells you that the water quality is pretty good. But if all you're finding are leeches and maybe a crane fly, then the water quality is not so great. So just by knowing what you're catching gives you a hint about water quality. Cool, isn't it? Oh, you hear the cardinal, Jessica?
I do, I do. And I'm also seeing many dragonflies flying, flitting back and forth across the wetland here.
And pretty soon the females are gonna dip their abdomen into the water and they're laying eggs is what they're doing. Oh, did you know, Jessica? If you were to take a square meter of wetland, like this, by this, by this, and you were to count all the life in that square meter, there'd be way more life in that square meter of wetland than if you did the same in the woods. Wetlands are one of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the world. Unfortunately, here in Ontario, about 70% of all wetlands have been drained. And they've been drained because of urban sprawl, people building houses and cities. They've been drained for agriculture. But now, people are recognizing the value of wetlands. Wetlands, they have the capacity to hold water. They can filter out pollutants. They can make water much cleaner. So it's good for us to do our best to protect wetlands. And even though we might not know what kind of life lives there, it's a great idea to go and explore. Because the more you know about what lives in a wetland, the more you appreciate it. The more you appreciate it, maybe the more you'll want to protect it. One last thing we can do for you folks. You know, Jessica, have you ever seen the one tree that has bubbles on it?
Oh, let's see, the sap bubbles?
Yeah, actually it's
From this-
resin. It comes from a
Okay.
balsam fir.
Fur.
Balsam fir has needles and you can't roll the needles in your fingers because they're very flat and short. But if you take a twig and if you put a little bit of the resin on, I don't know if you can see that, Jessica,
Yes.
and try to get a straight stick and just put it in the water and then see what happens. You see how the way it starts to shoot and go? That's the balsam fir motorboat zooming away because the oil is hydrophobic and it pushes this thing forward, the stick forward. Isn't that cool? Should we try that again?
Incredible, yes.
Here's another one, boat number 2. You can sort of see it sort of kick into gear. This one, maybe not so much. And sometimes you'll see a little slick of what looks like oil, but actually it's just the resin. So the tree has the resin to protect it from insects. That guy, not so much. But the first one zoomed along nicely.
Very interesting. Jacob, now, before we finish, can we release these beautiful
Yeah.
friends here?
We're gonna say a little poem for them,
Okay.
and then we'll release them and we'll wish them well. You guys will discover all kinds of things if you just take the time to go and catch some things in a wetland. Okay, here we go. Want to repeat after me?
All right.
Swim away, float away, dive away, leap.
Swim away, float away, dive away, leap.
You're free to go. You I'm not going to keep.
You're free to go. You I'm not going to keep.
You from living your life, you're meant to be free.
You for living your life, you're meant to be free.
Thank you for sharing this time with me.
And thank you for sharing this time with me.
Go on, be free. Oh, I also caught some frog eggs there, or maybe there.
Freedom, beautiful.
There, so no creatures harmed.
There's the newt. Look at him. He's coming back to shore. Just don't step on him.
Oh, okay, my friend. I might even take him back to where I found him.
Yep.
Just because I don't think he should be leaving, unless he's a red F ready to go.
Yep.
Okay, hold it.
Here.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us.
Jacob, thank you. It's very informative and interesting.
And we're going to see you in the stream in a little while. All right? So take care.
Beautiful. Thanks, Jacob.
Bye.
you're there, Jacob, let us know.
Yeah, I'm right here.
There, I see you. That was great. We're just getting so much great feedback from people. Really loved the presentation. I showed it to my 5-year-old son, and his favorite part, besides your dancing, he loved seeing the leeches. Just was enamored, like couldn't take his eyes off them, just thought they were so cool. Jessica, same, definitely showing the video to the kids in my daycare. So we are going to enter in, hope everybody's back now. We're going to enter into the Q&A section. What are some of the safety protocols for working with children around water when you want to go out and do something like you've shown us tonight?
Sure, I recognize a lot of teachers might be apprehensive about taking their kids to water, and the school board would say they're not allowed in the water. If that's the case, you can still catch plenty of things from the shore. What I like to do is I take a couple of bandanas and I tie them around trees, and I say, you can only go from this tree to this tree along the shore and just stay within this area and net dip. And, I can fill up some water containers, and we can catch lots of stuff from the shore. The other thing I like to do is go to a shallow stream like Jackson's Creek, and I'll find a section where it doesn't go past the knees. And I'll just say, you can go from here to here. And I just watch them like hawks. And as long as they're contained in a small area, you can see everybody really well, and they'll have a chance to catch amazing critters in Jackson's Creek, especially crayfish and stonefly nymphs. And if you feel more comfortable letting them go deeper, just make sure you are very clear about your boundaries.
Another question, how can you net dip in the least intrusive way possible? You're a pro.
Well, I'm really careful about making sure I'm not trampling vegetation because I don't want to harm any plants. So I usually know in advance where's a place I can go where there's lots of rocks, or maybe there's a bit of lawn, and we just net dip from there. And then when I'm net dipping, I talk to kids about the ethic of taking care of what we're catching. I say, these are living things. They're not just inanimate objects, and they're part of the life systems that nourish and support us. We want to take good care of them. I really want you to think about all the critters as part of your neighborhood, as part of your community. That's very much a First Nations perspective. In Anishinaabe-Moan, they use the word Anakana, which means all my relations. If you can start teaching that idea to kids, that everything, including the plants, the rocks, the water, the air, the insects, they're all part of your family, and they merit being treated gently.
Yeah, I love that philosophy. Now, not all creatures are made the same. Some might be a little more scary to a parent, an educator. I mean, you are just a whiz with the little critters. You have no fear whatsoever. But, do you have any tips for handling if you're new and you're exploring ponds for the first time and you want to pick up that crayfish, but you're like, I'm not sure what are some tips that you would give for kids that are afraid to discover in the pond, or educators or parents?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, the last thing you want to do is scare a kid. So I often have little mini yogurt containers that are white. And the reason they're white is so you can see the critter against the white. Use paintbrushes and very gently wet the paintbrush, and you can move the critter from the paintbrush into your little container and watch them swim. You don't actually have to handle them with your hands. Use a magnifying glass so you can see all those features up close, including the gills, the mouth parts, the legs, the way the body's segmented, its color. And the one thing I really want to emphasize is the importance of using the proper language. It's so easy to say, oh, God, that's disgusting. Put that down. Instead, use the language of wonder. Isn't that amazing? And if you're even a little bit uncomfortable with it, you can say, well, that's cool. Let's watch how it moves. Let's watch how it breathes. And the more we use the language of wonder, the more we spark curiosity, and curiosity is the engine of learning. So wonder questions are so important, and get kids thinking about the critter that's in their container. You can all get them to sit in a circle facing inward, and then it's like a slide carousel. So I'll say, okay, look in your container. How do you think your critter breathes? Okay, switch. And then everybody moves their critter over one. And that way everybody sees everybody's critter.
I love that. And that idea of modeling, right? If you're respectful and you use respectful language and you treat the critters with respect, then kids are automatically picking up on those cues. A couple of questions in the chat from Donna. Do you have a favorite laminated pond reference guide or booklet that's kid-friendly?
Yeah, the Golden Guide to Ponds is great. It's got colorful pictures in it and great descriptions that are easy to read. I have a little aquatic key, which just shows drawings of the pictures, and it's easy for kids to match up what they've caught with the drawing. But the Golden Guides, I'd recommend that.
Angela, I totally hear you. So Angela lives 2 minutes from Jackson's Creek. I've filmed in this spot. There's lots of crayfish. She's wondering, with teaching online, is there sort of a recommended way that she could bring those crayfish to kids online?
Yeah, is it possible for you to actually videotape while you're at the creek and then just catch some and put them in a bin and show them up close and show the different features? That's what I would try to do. If not, then you can bring them home for an evening and just show them through your camera on the computer and then return them again. But there's also wonderful videos of crayfish too you can find online. But yeah, whet their appetite and hopefully one day they can go and catch their own crayfish in Jackson Creek. Such fun.
Definitely. We loved your release poem on that note. It's such a great way to end the video, really respectful. Why do you think it's important to teach children about releasing animals unharmed after you've had a good look at them?
It is, again, a First Nations perspective that you want to model respect at every turn. And from respect comes the idea of responsibility, of wanting to care for things. And out of responsibility flows the idea of reciprocity, of wanting to give back. So these are really important First Nations principles of respect, responsibility, reciprocity, and relationship. And it all comes down to forming a positive relationship between you and the rest of the living world.
Are there any ways you could connect a pond exploration with, say, practicing math?
Yeah, sure. What you could do is you could go to different areas of the stream and you can catch different aquatic invertebrates and then graph their population and see if you can match the population to the habitat. Oh, did we catch more stonefly nymphs in the stream? I wonder why that is. Well, it turns out that they need fresh flowing water. Oh, did you catch lots of dragonflies in the mud? Well, that's interesting. I wonder why. Turns out that that's where they live. So just graphing populations and comparing them to habitat is one simple thing you can do. You can measure the size of aquatic invertebrates. Stonefly nymphs can be, a couple centimeters long. Mayfly nymphs, half a centimeter long. You can even experiment with the Fibonacci sequence, which is so much of nature is based on this wonderful sequence, which was discovered more than 1,000 years ago. But it goes like this. It's the first two numbers yield the next numbers. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, and so on. But that's the spiral of a snail shell. That is the way that twigs are arranged on the stem, petals on a flower. So if you want to get into the Fibonacci sequence, it's a beautiful way for patterning in math.
That's amazing. While you were talking there, and you know so many names, and in your videos, so many names of all these different critters. I feel like it could be intimidating for someone just getting into the pond, especially when you say there's so much in like a square foot. Should people be concerned that they don't know every name of every critter they find? How do you sort of overcome just that first barrier of getting involved?
Oh, it's just the wonder part. You don't need to know the names of things. You can just ask evocative questions, which is what I was trying to get at when we were talking about how it moves and how it breathes and the color it is. And you can always look it up later. But the most important thing is that you honor a kid's curiosity. You take the trouble to help them find the answer. Because again, that's the engine of learning. We want to spur on curiosity. We never want to shut it down. So just be amazed. I know some things about nature, but the more I know, the more I realize I'm in kindergarten. There's so much more to know, and we'll always be in that boat, but just being open to learning more. Think about it like your friends. The first part of getting to know a friend is its name, and the next part is getting to know its character, its story. So just being open to that. And there's so much information online that you can find out, and over time, you'll gain more knowledge and you'll appreciate nature even more.
And I feel like you can carry it through. If you find something near the pond that you're like, what is that? That's almost so fun to be able to go back with your child or your classroom and really discover what it is. Maybe you have a picture of it like you had, where you really get to examine it and talk about it. And then it becomes sort of an ongoing narrative, which, I mean, to me is
Right.
probably an expansion of the education that you started at the pond. So that's
Right.
really, really nice
It's
idea.
the power of curiosity, right? I could say, hey, do you want to catch a crayfish? Look under that rock. Or I could say, hey, I wonder what's under the rock.
Right.
The second part is way more powerful because a kid will lift up the rock, scoop their net, and just, hey, look what I found. I found a crayfish. So they own the discovery. So as much as possible, giving kids a chance to own the discovery, to be amazed, and just nurture that along. And awe, amazement, and wonder.
Now I learned how to call chickadees with Jacob at Camp Kawartha to my hand, feeding from my hand. So he knows the answer to this next question from Lucy. Loved how you began with the bird calls. You love birds, I know that. So do you recommend anywhere to discover bird calls?
One of my favorite resources, if you can get your hands on it, is the Peterson Field Guide to Bird Song. It comes in CDs, and what they do, it's very clever, is they help you recognize the pattern and the tone of a bird's song by linking it to mnemonics or a saying. You know, the mourning dove. There's nothing to do. And the wonderful thing about learning your bird songs, you don't need to see them to know that they're there. And when you walk through a forest listening to the chorus of bird songs, it's like you're among friends. And you'll notice that there is a sequencing to bird songs. And early in the spring, the chickadees begin calling, and later on, the warblers begin calling. It takes a while, but after a while, your ear will get tuned in to the different sounds that birds make. So start with just a few commoners and then build from there. But use mnemonics, a little memory device.
Amazing. And I know that Kathy, who's a big birder, she would recommend, if you want to start somewhere online, Cornell Labs is a great starting spot for people. They have some amazing bird camps too, if you want to follow along with your class or your child. So thank you for that question.
The other thing I wanted to mention is the importance of citizen science, because it's such a neat way to get kids involved. So you got eBird, iNaturalist, Journey North, and all of these things encourage kids to report their findings, and then actual data that's gathered by scientists that does some good.
Okay, what are some important roles that wetlands play in the environment? We saw so many different wetland types there in your video.
Gosh, they're so important. What happens is the roots help to filter out toxins and pollutants. Cattails are really renowned for that. Also, the retention time in the soil means that a wetland is like a sponge. It'll hold water for longer. That helps with flooding. It provides incredible habitat for fish, and all those invertebrates are part of the base of a food chain. So many birds rely on eating those insects. Of course, they sequester carbon. They prevent erosion. They really help to improve water quality. So we should do our best to protect wetlands, plus just the fact that they're one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth. And it's just sad that we didn't know that many years ago and drained so many of them away. But the big word that I want people to be thinking about these days is not just sustainability, because sustaining what we're doing as humans, I don't think is a long-term proposition. Instead, it's thinking regeneratively, which means, can we create more nature? Can we enhance the nature that's already there? So a great thing to do with students is take them to a shoreline and maybe plant some more plants to help stabilize the bank, add biodiversity. So think about regenerative acts, not just sustainable ones.
Do you know of any wetland protection, public education ways that students can get involved and build on their stewardship skills?
Camp Kawartha has this great program called Be a Watershed Steward that we do in partnership with Autonomy Conservation. What happens is you come here to the Environment Center, you learn about sustainable living, you learn about water quality, And then those same students go with autonomy region educators and rehabilitate a shoreline or plant a pollinator garden. So there's a knowledge component and then an action component. And it's really important that kids get involved in direct action to show that they can make a difference.
Where can you go in the Peterborough area to conduct a pond or stream study? Where would you recommend?
One of the easiest places is Jackson's Creek, because it got that beautiful pond and then the stream nearby, so you can compare those two ecosystems. Also at Trent University, there's the archaeology pond. So if you're going on Pioneer Road and you turn left on the east bank to go to Zosky College, the wetland is right there on the left. Even just along the shores of the Otonabee River, you could catch things in the mud, and that's a wonderful place to go. Really, any pond will yield some interesting life.
Amazing. Lucy is touting your frog calls, saying they were amazing. Can you maybe play us out with some frog calls? If anyone would like to say hi to Jacob, you're welcome to turn on your camera, say hi now. Otherwise, we appreciate you all taking the time to be here this evening. We know you are busy. It was great having you here. Thank you so much. Good night.
Beep, beep, beep.
Thank you.